And so what do you think are the main challenges, and why do you think Totalfit Defense has tools that are valuable for being a mentor to the next generation?
There's a different kind of pandemic that's happening, and so I think the biggest challenges are helping people to see the dangers that they're facing. I mean, we're just as a society taking leaps and bounds in removing ourselves from community. And community is where we grow. Community is where we learn. It's where we improve. It's proven. Like, we can't do that in isolation.
In my hometown, there was a church converted to a casino, a church converted to a nightclub, two actually, and a church that was converted to a Dracula-themed bar. That, for me, was like normal growing up.
Yeah.
It was when I left Scotland that some people were shocked to hear that. Like, how could you do that in a church?
These things that you mentioned, the idea of, the casino and the bar and all these things, every one of us is searching for a deeper meaning. We're looking for something more in life. This is it. I'm gonna wake up, go to work, come home, be with my family, and go to sleep. Like, is there something more?
Trace, let's talk a little bit about teaching martial arts in the 21st century and being a coach more broadly, right? So there's been huge changes in society since especially the traditional arts were developed, and there are new challenges that are evolving, especially with young people are having really, really significant challenges socially with the use of technology, the invasion of technology into people's lives, in terms of lifestyle, in terms of mental health, in terms of spiritual well-being. And so what do you think are the main challenges, and why do you think Totalfit Defense has tools that are valuable for being a mentor to the next generation?
Man, that's like, of all the topics so far, I think this is the most significant for what we're facing, as you said. And it's across all the cultures. It's not just in the US where I am or where you are here. There's a different kind of pandemic that's happening. And so I think the biggest challenges are helping people to see the dangers that they're facing. I mean, we're just as a society taking leaps and bounds in removing ourselves from community. And community is where we grow. Community is where we learn. It's where we improve. It's proven. Like, we can't do that in isolation. So if we can communicate a need and show people that this is a major problem, and there's a lot of evidence and scientific data that's coming online, but when we pull people out of that and we give them something like CKD or Totalfit Defense, it immediately is counter to everything that they're going through. They're not alone. They're with a group of people now. In our case, we're asking them like very specific questions, developing things like gratitude. What are you thankful for? Like, you ask that question to a teenager and they struggle. Like, what happened this week that you're grateful for? And they haven't been developing that skill. So giving them that opportunity to say that out loud. Or what are you struggling with is another question we ask. What's something that stressed you out? And people don't see the value or understand when you communicate that, maybe somebody else is going through the same thing. They're not holding it to themselves. It's a shared burden that we're then taking forward. We may not solve all the problems, but knowing that you're walking through that with other people is very powerful.
Yeah, these are things you can't really do alone. Expressing your gratitude. There are practices you can have to focus on that. I think prayer is a really powerful one for that. But it is so distinctly different when you bring gratitude into a communal setting, and I think you can gain more perspective. I think, and then also being able to share some of the burdens that you're facing and not feel like you're alone in all of that.
It's a reminder that we are meant to be with each other. Another question we ask is, what's in need of our group that we could perhaps meet together? So now there's that idea of coming alongside people to tangibly, maybe it's something simple like, hey, I'm just running a little short on cash. Could we do a meal or something, or a little bit of money for some gas, or small things, but if you're sort of locked away at a distance, it's really hard to apply some of those life skills. Certainly to teach them, but it's another thing to actually apply them in our lives. So when we get people out of their bubble, so to speak, they're in a circle of people looking across and actually seeing another human being. To me, that's one of the tremendous benefits of Totalfit Defense. And then you talk about like taking it to the next level. After we've worked out, we've learned this technique, we've learned this block, we've sweated together, we've grown in that. Then we sit down and we actually hear a story that probably they'll relate with. Maybe it's a story of somebody rescuing a person on the side of the road, or going out of their way to help somebody out. And you begin to ask questions about, who are you in the story? Like, put yourself in the story. What position do you find yourself in? And people start having to engage. That's the spiritual component, like where purpose and mindfulness about my role in life. That is transformational stuff that I don't think is really accessible in the third spaces that are available today, which really is an online community, if that. So I think these are invaluable resources that Totalfit offers the average person in an hour setting. Like, we're not talking like huge investments of time here. We're just trying to get people into these communities together to transform lives.
And it doesn't ask questions of the entrance into the community is very low. The barrier is very low, and it's lean, right? So in Scotland, we've had the like really significant decline of religion. And I don't think that people really understand that about being Scottish. In my hometown, there was a church converted to a casino, a church converted to a nightclub, two actually, and a church that was converted to a Dracula themed bar.
Wow.
Okay, so now that for me was like normal growing up.
Yeah.
It was when I left Scotland that some people were shocked to hear that. Like, how could you do that in a church? And say, well, because people don't go to church anymore. They go to casino, they go to nightclub, they go to the bar. That's one of the main features of Scottish society. People spend communal time in those spaces. I don't think personally that the bar is where all your problems get solved, nor the casino, nor the nightclub. Having communal spaces that people can discuss bigger issues in life and can have a safe space to discuss their real, tangible, immediate problems, I think that is really different nowadays than it used to be, when people used to have a spiritual community that they were born a member of, they were indoctrinated into from childhood, and they were basically lifelong members of. Now you're a pastor, so you must see it as well. You've got that space that you're playing a role in. And America is maybe different, because from the outside, at least, America seems to take its religion more seriously than some of the Western places. They're more devout, right? In Malaysia, religion is a very serious topic. So in terms of that space for community and a certain type of non-denominational, non-specific spiritual community, do you think Totalfit Defense has some sort of unique value there? Is it a distinct value? What's your view on that?
I think it does. These things that you mentioned, the idea of the casino and the bar and all these things, every one of us is searching for a deeper meaning. We're looking for something more in life. This is it. I'm gonna wake up, go to work, come home, be with my family, and go to sleep. Like, is there something more? And then people look for satisfaction and fulfillment in all these different things, and like you said, they're not going to find temporary, joy or fulfillment. And so when we gather together and we help people address some of these identity issues. Really, when I think spiritual in a total fit defense kind of setting, I'm thinking like purpose. Who are you? What's the value of your life? What do you not what job do you hold? Not what positions do you hold in life, but what value do you bring to this world? How are you uniquely gifted to serve other people and make a difference in the life? So the idea of developing a life mission, these kinds of spiritual aspects, and really, it is a broad open door, but there's also an opportunity to go deeper if people desire to do that. So yeah, I'm a pastor, right? I'm a Christian background. So if I'm having this conversation and we're talking about maybe this concept of the Good Samaritan kind of thing, and somebody resonates with that and they want to go deeper, then I have the space to be able to do that, just like anybody else would in any other kind of spiritual leadership role.
Yes.
It's an avenue, it's an opportunity to pursue that deeper if somebody would want to. But outside of that, there's not really a good, healthy, protected space to be able to do that. In fact, you go online and you're just going to get, you get hammered. You don't have an opportunity to really navigate those waters.
It's the thing that strikes me about what you're saying is balance, right? Mm-hmm. The session is not all about spirituality, but there's depth there if you want it. And I think that that's just a balanced and moderate way of going about your life. I think another feature of the current moment is extremism and polarization. And we discussed it a little bit off camera about polarization. And one of the challenges or one of the negative features of online communities is that they seem to be these little pockets of extremism and radicalization and polarized views. And so when you exist in real life, people behave differently, and they're not necessarily the loudest voice. Like sometimes these polarized views, they're really loud online, and then they perpetuate themselves, mm-hmm. right? They kind of cook down and concentrate. And so I think that for spirituality and for personal development, I think physical communities, actual spaces, and real human interactions, I think that regardless of the advent of technology, I think they're still going to be really important.
I couldn't agree more. Like I said, I don't think you gain those things to the degree that transformation happens. Certainly not in isolation, and certainly not in that online sort of virtual space where people are not authentic. Generally, that's a generalization, but yeah, people are way more bold to speak out or to be very one-sided. Like, all of my information comes from this source. Mm-hmm. When you get in a group of people that have different opinions, like all of a sudden you're like, oh, I've never heard that before. Is that true? Like, yeah, let's talk about these things. Let's bring a variety of backgrounds together in a circle where you're not just in an echo chamber, like you said, and hearing the same sort of things over and over again.
I think that with technology, it's about use of it, right? And so I've slanted the online communities. I'm a member of some Discords. Yeah. I'm I'm a bit of a gamer. I have a game that I'm in a guild, and I chat with my guild mates. I'm actually in an Italian guild.
Nice.
That's one of my habits for keeping up my Italian. So yeah, we joke around, and it's incredible that in Malaysia I can be in an Italian guild for a video game that we all play daily. But it's about the use and the scope. Right. For that scope where we're only interacting about damage per second and characters and hey, look how I did on this guild raid and that type of stuff, it's amazing. It's great. But when you look for deeper meaning, I just don't see it as the main framework. And I don't see it ever replacing communal spiritual growth and practice. But I do see the face of communal spiritual growth and practice changing. Yeah. And I see it not universally, and I don't think that it's right or wrong, but there is a trend of people moving away from organized religion, mm-hmm. the big religions, and it's somehow spirituality has really become decentralized in a lot of ways, but that can be a really difficult sea to navigate. When people move away from having the structure that religion gives you, people's spiritual practices can become a bit all over the place. The one I always use to describe it is goji berries. Some people, they think they're going to fix their health with goji berries, right?
Yeah.
Or creatine.
Yep.
That's going to be the one-stop shop. It fits everything. And spirituality, I really don't think is like that. I think that it's similar to nutrition in that you need to be aware of your calories, aware of your macros. You need to have the priorities in the right way. And I think that if you have something that gives you guidance and structure and can keep you accountable and keep you grounded, I think that's really, really powerful, because the freestyle spirituality, you can become ungrounded or you can become overwhelmed, you know? I think that the completely individualistic spirituality is not as beneficial in my personal experience, my own journey. It's not been nearly as beneficial as developing and growing as a community.
I think we all need leaders in all aspects, including the spiritual. I think you're right. There is danger in just sort of going off the beaten path and, oh, this works for me. I think we need spiritual leaders in our lives to help shape. And if you think about like a foundation, like if you have no foundation in terms of what you think or believe in a spiritual way, you're going to be all over the place. The rest of your existence is going to be sort of in danger. If you have like at least a foundation of what you anchor to in your spiritual understanding of who you are and just your place in the world, then there's an opportunity to build in a healthy direction. And when you have community where you can do that together, it's safer, I believe.
I think that the Taekwondo kind of attracts these type of people because if you were primarily concerned with material success, and you wanted to become a financially successful instructor, you'd arguably do something that sells better, that everybody knows. Leverage the brand of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Leverage the fact that everybody knows Taekwondo. If you wanted to be competitively successful in cage fighting and MMA or whatever, then you'd go down the more traditional routes and follow those established paths. Taekwondo is an alternative style, and I think that it is for the people who care about the holistic. What makes holistic different to the people who are dedicated on competitive martial arts or sort of running a martial art as a business, it's ultimately going to be the spiritual component, I think. There's going to be the mental health, the spiritual well-being, and it's quite tricky to separate mental health and spiritual well-being.
There's a lot of overlap.
There's a significant amount. Talking then, the last topics on this, the actual resources that Totalfit Defense has then. So we spoke about this communal space, but there's some online resources and online components, and there's leveraging of technology. So can you tell us a little bit about that? What are some of we've kind of slated, where we've identified the challenges,
right?
But there's also some incredible opportunities with the present state of technology and lifestyle. So can you tell us a little bit about some of the ways that Totalfit is innovated using technology?
Yeah, one of our goals is to raise up coaches in our Totalfit Defense system to have these kinds of impacts that we're talking about. Like that's one of our emphases moving forward is let's find some people who are familiar with fitness and martial arts. Maybe they're not, a black belt, but they have a desire to want to make an impact and see transformation. We want to raise those people up. We realize that maybe that's a longer on-ramp for some people. And so if we had like a 3-day training somewhere, we're not going to teach them 18 techniques and 3 patterns, and it's not going to happen. So that's why we invited you and others a year ago to put all of our training online. And we've done that. So we have all of our training to become a level 1 coach is accessible online. So you can go and learn sort of at your own pace. Okay, here's this technique. And then we interact, film yourself on a low block. Let's see what it looks like. Here's some feedback, and they progress through that. Maybe it takes them 3, 4, 6 months to get through that. Interacting with them, like I said, as we go. And then the next step would be an in-person certification where we could come alongside them, do a 3-day training where we introduce the theory behind everything, teach them the Totalfit stamp and, nutrition and biomechanics and all that kind of stuff. But all that is available online. And there's actually people are interested, they can go to our website and see a couple of samples of what that looks like. Totalfitdefense.com. They can see, oh, here's what it actually looks like. Here's what the stances are. Here's our rear inward punch. And they can get a taste of what that looks like. And then we're developing sort of an online content for coaches and instructors that are wanting to grow in their efforts of becoming the best possible version of that. So those are things that we're developing now, and as you become a coach, we'll have access to those kinds of resources moving forward. We have like a Telegram community where people can ask questions and just be even though it's digital and a virtual kind of thing, it's all like-minded people who are just trying to be the best Total Fit Defense coach they can be, and so there's a space for them to ask how-tos and best practices and things like that. And then Total Fit actually has their own app, which is it's actually really well done. Talk about mind, body, and spirit. They have like these little markers of how you're doing throughout the day, and you can kind of plug in, oh, I did this for my spiritual practice, I did this for my physical, and it keeps track, and it tells you like, hey, you're out of balance. You need to shore up in this area, maybe give some attention to this. So there is a growing amount of online resources, but our priority has been getting the training online, so anybody in the world that has access to the internet can go through the training process.
Yeah, my experience of the 2 sessions that we've had in Istanbul, they're great, guys. God, I really enjoyed my time. Like, really enjoyed my time. And that makes such a difference. The community that I've experienced has been really cool, and I get on well with Choi Kwon Do people, but these guys they're innovative, they're hardworking, and they're really talented. They're really good. It's so important that your core is really good, because that's what's gonna develop and grow. But I think the core community they're just fantastic.
It's a special group of people. It really is. You can sense it, like you talked about.
Yeah.
And that is important, because that's the DNA that's going to go out as we seek to replicate this idea and train up and equip coaches all around the world. What you're building off of, who influenced that is gonna go out from there. So I'm really excited about the potential future endeavors.
Definitely. Yeah, it's very exciting. It's really exciting time. The last thing I wanted to pull up there, I just remembered, was you mentioned about the resources available for Total Fit Defense instructors. So for me coming at it, I kind of was like, don't tell me about Choi Kwon Do. I don't need to focus on that. I'm professional Choi Kwon Do master. But I was really interested in the journaling, the stories, the structure, the nutrition, how do they do that, the exercise components, things related to mobility, strength, flexibility. I'm really interested in how they do that. I know how to teach outward block. So for me, that was super interesting. But it's also been really cool to see people who aren't from a Choi Kwon Do background and how they learn, and how they're like, well, I know about fitness, I know about so on. Like, there was one who was a fitness instructor, but didn't know about the self-defense thing, so she was learning a pattern for the first time. And that's something I've seen a lot of people learn patterns, but it was really cool to see that you can come at it from so many angles. You can most certainly come at it from a Choi Kwon Do background. You need to be open-minded that you're not well-rounded enough yet. You're gonna have to work on a broader range of skills so that you can do it justice. Some people they'll find, I think, that other areas of their life they pull in, and this was something that we spoke about on the first episode of the podcast, was about being a well-rounded individual and how that makes you a better instructor. And you bring more authenticity, and not necessarily more authenticity, I don't think that's correct. It's that when you're authentic and you've had a breadth of experiences and you've done different things, people can connect with you in different ways, and you can lean on it in different moments. And I think that one of the amazing things about Total Fit Defense is because it's holistic and because of its structure, different parts of people's life journeys can come out in really interesting and positive ways. And so closing then on this section, some memorable experiences, memorable transformations. Is there any stories you have from your experience with Totalfit or Totalfit Defense that are real highlights for you?
One of them is a personal experience, just kind of what you talked about in terms of the caliber of people and those that are coming around Totalfit Defense. It's been a boost just across the board for me. Like knowing that there are people doing this kind of work, I didn't know like there was people dedicated to this kind of stuff, and that was it was kind of the timely in the sense that I was looking for what was next, and so when I kind of came in contact with this concept, it changed me in a lot of really powerful ways. So I'm really grateful for my journey of coming alongside TotalFit and now working with TotalFit Defense and developing that. It's made a really impactful shift in how I see life. In terms of like a specific example, so I teach classes at the park, I teach classes in a variety of settings, but one of them is in what I'll call like a temporary housing facility where there's maybe a dozen families that are trying to get on their feet, and they bring in a variety of different classes and teachers and all kinds of different things. And I got connected with them, so I go in there and teach classes. That's probably been the most, encouraging, uplifting, and also involved, in-depth conversations that I've had in the training session. So a lot of times, it feels like you're like pulling information out of people sometimes, like, come on, what are you thankful for? Like, how are you gonna apply this? In this particular setting, there's a young lady she's probably mid-20s, got 4 kids on her own. And just seeing sort of the walls come down immediately. Like I need this community. Like she understood what she was up against and the value of what we were doing. We shared the story of the Good Samaritan. And she said, I'm the one on the side of the road that people constantly walked by, just looking at me or looking down at me because I didn't fit the mold or whatever, like tears in her eyes. And she said, that helped me become a person who would never leave somebody on the side of the road. And here you've got like a dozen other people, young people too, and older people that are just completely resonating with what she's saying. The depth of that conversation, it was like 10 minutes maybe. It was powerful. Like you could feel it in the room. Like people were relating in ways that were going to shift how they moved forward. Because that's, again, always what are we going to do about this? And the kinds of things that people were saying they wanted to do were, like, I did not expect that at all. I honestly had no idea what to expect, but I didn't expect that. People giving tangible ways, like, I'm going to make sure that nobody else is in my shoes. I'm going to give people an opportunity to be able to thrive in life so they don't have to experience what I'm experiencing right now in homelessness and just sort of transition in life. I'm there as a volunteer, and I don't need anything from that. Like that experience right there, that's all I need. It was so encouraging and transformative in that moment.
It's powerful because people are becoming motivated.
Yeah.
They're becoming motivated, and one of the first points that I made about any sort of martial art class, fitness class, it's if you do an hour a week, it's less than 1% of your week. So your behavior is in that session is ultimately very small in relation to the rest of your week. But if your motivation changes in that session, then your behavior can carry on and affect that 99%. Trace, it's been absolutely fantastic. I think it's time for us to wrap up. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, brother.
Coming on
so much
on the pod.
Yes, sir.
Right, guys, that's it. I really hope you've enjoyed this episode. We've had Trace here. We've heard about his journey of becoming a leader in Totalfit Defense, what that is, how it's related to Choi Kwando, his journey from doing martial arts as a child, like many of us have, into becoming an instructor in the Marine Corps martial art program and his 20 years of service there, and then retiring from that to become a pastor, and then using Totalfit Defense as a way to positively affect his communities in a holistic way. And it's been super interesting hearing that. So Trace, any final pointers, concluding thoughts?
I would just encourage people to figure out what they're passionate about, especially in the holistic sense. Like, how are you gifted, and how can you best leverage that to impact lives? To me, life is about impacting lives in a positive way. So if you're doing that, by all means, lean into it and find that pathway and find it as soon as possible. Don't wait. Know that you have a unique gifting and follow after it.
Fantastic. And for people who want to learn more about Totalfit Defense, how can they find out more?
Yeah, you can go to the website, totalfitdefense.com. Social media is at Totalfit Defense.
Fantastic. And then, of course, we have at Choices CKD, we have the Inwords and Onwards podcast on YouTube and Spotify, by the way.
Nice.
Yeah, so that's it. Thank you very much, guys. Subscribe and leave a like if you'd like to keep up to date, because there will be another episode coming. Thank you very much. Thank you, sir.
Appreciate you.